This is why you're not building muscle. If you're a guy, specifically if you're 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 years old, your goal should be to try to put on as much lean muscle tissue as possible. I'm gonna give you a few different tips here, but that's the only way you're gonna build muscle, because one of the biggest things I see with not only some of my clients, but some of the people I worked with over the years, if you're still not building muscle, it's gonna come down to just you're a guy, specifically if you're 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 years old, your goal should be to try to put on as much lean muscle tissue as possible. Now, the older you get, the less muscle tissue you're going to be able to put on. But the key is doing things necessary to make sure your body is optimizing itself for building lean muscle tissue. Now, the first thing I will tell you, I'm going to give you a few different tips here, but the first thing I'm going to have to make sure that you understand is that typically, if you're not building muscle, you're working out hard, you're doing a lot of these other things that I'm about to share with you, then if you're still not building muscle, it's going to come down to just not eating enough food. So nutrition is going to be paramount. Now, here's the thing when it comes to building muscle. When it comes to building muscle, you're fighting against your body. Your body doesn't necessarily want to build muscle. It wants to stay the same. So your body is always trying to adapt to a workload or adapt to what you're eating so that it can remain the same, homeostasis. For you to stay ahead of that, you're going to have to continue to eat more food, work out even harder, do some of these other things I'm about to share with you, because that's the only way you're going to build muscle if you are a man over 40. If you're younger than that, you can get away with one or two of these things I'm about to share, but you still need to make sure that you're focused on doing these things consistently, day in, day out. When I said nutrition, the very first thing is eating in a caloric surplus. Now that may seem easy, but here's the thing. Some people, if you're considered a hard gainer, you may be eating 3,000 calories and you're still not putting on any muscle. I'm going to share some other reasons that might be the case, but I do want to make sure that you're focused on getting those calories day in, day out, because one of the biggest things I see with not only some of my clients, but some of the people I worked with over the years is they will eat a lot of food Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but those other 2 days, they don't eat very much. The way I look at everything is you want to take a 7-day average. So when I say you're eating 3,000 calories every day, you want to make sure that is your 7-day average. So if you're eating 3,000 calories on 4 days and you're only eating 1,800 calories on a couple and maybe 1,500 on another, then that's not going to be sufficient if you're working hard enough. So that's going to be the first thing. Now, to piggyback onto something else when it comes to nutrition. So basically I'm talking about caloric surplus, but the other big issue I see is people are afraid of carbohydrates. If your goal is to build muscle, yes, you want to make sure you're prioritizing protein. I've harped on that for years, but protein is more essential when you are trying to burn fat because protein is muscle sparing. Now, when your goal is building muscle, if you're stimulating your muscle enough, doing some of the things I'm about to share with you, then you're going to make sure that your body is primed and stimulated enough to build that muscle tissue. And you don't need near as much protein. You still want your protein. You still want to prioritize protein, but the biggest macronutrient people miss out on is carbohydrates. And this is just, everyone is unique and everyone is different. So I've worked with enough people over the years, thousands of people over the years, to realize that what works for one may not work for the other. For instance, I can do really well with 300 to 400 carbohydrates when I'm trying to grow, and I get some lean growth out of that. Now, I've worked with other clients. I've worked with other people that if they do that many carbohydrates, they're going to feel bloated. They're going to feel lethargic. Their intensity level is going to drop and they're not going to get good results because those people, their bodies prefer more fat. You got those two fuel sources. You got your essential fats. You got your complex carbohydrates. Now you got to determine which one is best for you. So for me, it's carbohydrates. For majority of the people that I've worked with over the years, it's always been the carbohydrates. The thing about carbohydrates, so if you're eating your carbs, I want you to try to bracket those around your workout, specifically now that you're older. If you're going to get 150 carbs, maybe 200 carbs, try to get the bulk of those about an hour and a half to 2 hours before your workout. And then the next bulk after your workout. Now, that may mean 75 and 75, 150. And if you're getting 200, you can get another 50 grams of protein with another meal. I just want you to prioritize bracketing that workout. So that's going to fuel the workout and also help speed up the recovery after the workout. So that's one of the biggest issues. So you want to make sure you're eating your carbohydrates. And when I'm talking about carbs, I'm talking the rice, potatoes, quinoa, things like that, some good carbs, some fruits, even going to be good, multigrain breads. So just make sure you're getting some good carbohydrates to fuel your intense workouts and to keep your hormones optimized. So that's going to be the biggest issue. Now, the protein, I typically always recommend 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. And it's typically goal body mass. So if you're 155 pounds and you want to get to 170, then you would be shooting towards 170 grams of protein. Now, that's going to be typically towards the higher end when you're trying to grow. So, because at the end of the day, it's not just about getting that protein, like I mentioned, it's about getting the other macronutrients as well, the carbs and the fat sources. So make sure that you are prioritizing all three macronutrients. All right. Now, with that said, the next thing you got to make sure you're doing is within your workouts, your resistance training workouts, which typically I'm going to recommend in a growth phase that you work out 4 days per week. Why 4? 4 days of intense workouts is going to be sufficient to stimulate muscle growth. Now, the other 3 are paramount for rest and recovery because that's when your body's actually in the repair mode, in the growing mode. So I like 4 days on, 3 days off. Now, when you're in your workouts, I want you to focus on using compound movements, some variation of a squat on leg days or some lunges or something like that. Do those for legs. Do some either deadlifts or pull-ups or pull downs, something like that for your back, some kind of chest press, dumbbell bench press, dumbbell incline press. Just make sure you're focusing on those compound exercises. Make that the staple in your workout routine, each workout routine, and that's going to make a massive difference. Now, the other thing you got to focus on, you got to challenge yourself, man. You got to push yourself with the weights. So typically I tell you how to grow more muscle with light weights. But I think people don't understand what I mean by light. Lighter weights doesn't mean 20-pound dumbbells that you can do for 30 reps. I just mean you don't need to load up the hundreds to max out the load. Basically, what I want you to shoot for with these compound exercises, 6 to 12 repetitions, right in that rep range. You want to choose a weight that allows you to maybe in the first set, maybe get 12 or 13 repetitions. Don't choose a weight that is so light that you're stopping at 12 because I told you to do 6 to 12. But in all actuality, you can get 20 reps with it. If you can get 20 reps with that weight, it's not challenging enough. It's way too light. Spend the first week or so, write out your workout and then write down the weights that you're needing to fail within that 6 to 12 rep range. And that's going to be important because the next step is to make improvements from those. So if you're doing a 12-week or 16-week growth phase, which is typically what I recommend, make sure you give your body enough time to grow, enough time to feed it, enough time to rest, enough time to implement progressive overload, which is improvements from week to week or every other week. Those are the next steps with your workout. You write everything down. And if you have 50-pound dumbbells and you're failing, you're doing 3 sets. The first one, you get 12 reps. Second one, you get 10. Third, you get 8. That's perfect. So to progress with that, the next step could be get that 12 again with the first set. The second set, instead of getting 10, shoot for 11 to 12. 1 or 2 rep improvements there. Or if you can't, try it on the third set. Once you get to where you can do 3 sets of 12, then you need to add some weight. Bump it up 5 pounds or 10 pounds. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just make sure you're stimulating your body and you're staying ahead of your body as far as adaptation so that you give your body a reason to grow. That's going to be a big difference. Those are the key things. And then I want you to track it. That's why I told you to write it down. Write it down for 12 to 16 weeks and then track everything. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on a notepad. I'm an old school guy. I like to write it down. I've got my stuff in a notebook and I do that to this day. I write down my weights and I make sure I'm making progress either with the amount of weight I'm lifting or with the amount of repetitions I'm lifting or something like that. Or even, I will add some intensifiers, doing some drop sets or trisets or supersets. So if you're not familiar with those, there's a lot of those videos on my channel that kind of break down what some of those intensifiers are. Or just leave me a question in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer that and explain how to do some of those things. Now, the last thing I will touch on is, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but you need the rest and recovery to be optimal. So that's why, like I mentioned earlier, that I recommend 4 days on. That allows you 3 days off. On those 3 days, make sure you're getting really good rest. You're allowing your body time to recover. If your goal is building muscle, it means you don't need to take those 3 days and go do some high intensity cardio or something. You don't need to do a lot of cardio when you're in the middle of a growth phase, because cardio isn't a bad thing. It's good for heart health and things like that, but you don't really need to do a lot of it. Just 10 to 15 minutes here or there to work your heart health, especially when your goal is muscle building. So again, completely opposite if you're trying to burn body fat, but that's not what this video is about. So you do want to limit your cardio, limit your extra activities and things like that while you're in this growth phase. Now, if you're just extremely active and you can't limit it because you're in some leagues or you do other things like that, then the thing I'm going to recommend is on those 3 days that you are doing that, you're going to have to increase that calorie intake. You're going to have to give your body enough calories to offset that extra activity you're doing. So again, going back to 3,000 calories. Let's say you're doing 3,000 calories consistently for 2 weeks, every day, averaging 3,000. And then you suddenly get in a basketball league. You're playing basketball twice a week and you're burning 400 calories every time you play. You're doing that twice a week. You're adding 800 calories. I need you to add those 800 calories into those weeks. All right. On those days, eat 400 more calories each day, or even 500 or 600, whatever you need to fuel that activity, but also to recover from that activity. So hopefully this makes sense. And this is for all you guys trying to build muscle. I do a lot of stuff for guys trying to get lean, get in shape, and building muscle is getting in shape. Keep that in mind. So again, there's a lot of benefits to building muscle that go far beyond looking better, but also the mental health and confidence comes with it. And then also the more muscle you have on your body, the more body fat you're going to naturally burn. So you're killing two birds with one stone. I hate that saying, but that's what you're doing. Building muscle, burning fat. So you're getting a lot of phenomenal results. Thank you so much for watching this video. And that's all that I got, man. Get busy, get after it, and God bless.